I'm Dawn Montefusco, life coach for writers, poets, and creatives, and this is Write from Your Heart, how to unleash your creativity, share your message, and leave a lasting legacy. And today we have one of my favorites, Gay Hendricks. I'm going to read his bio because it's so awesome. Gay Hendricks has been a leader in the fields of relationship transformation and body-mind transformation for more than 45 years. After earning his PhD from Stanford in 1974, Gabe served as professor of counseling psychology at the University of Colorado for 21 years. He has written more than 40 books, including bestsellers such as 5 Wishes, The Big Leap, Conscious Loving, and Conscious Loving Ever After. The last 2 co-authored with his co-author and mate for more than 35 years, Dr. Kathleen Hendricks. I would say that wrong. He is also a mystery novelist with a series of 5 books featuring the Tibetan Buddhist private detective. You're going to have to say his name for me.
Tenzing Norbu.
Tenzing Norbu. I love it. As well as a new mystery series featuring a Victorian-era London detective, Sir Errol Hyde. His latest book, The Joy of Genius, shows us how to eliminate negative thinking and bring forth true creativity. Gay has appeared in more than 500 radio and television shows, including Oprah, CNN, CNBC, 48 Hours, and others. Yay! You are such a big force, like to reckon with, actually. When I read your stuff, it's amazing, and it makes me sleep better at night knowing you're out there. I do want to tell everyone that The Big Leap changed my life and many hundreds, if not millions, of other people. But today we're going to focus on his brand. There it is. I have it right over there. Thank you. His new book, The Joy of Genius, The Next Step Beyond the Big Leap, is out, and you have to run and get it, or do what I do and just buy it on Audible. Listen to it, because listening to it is amazing. And then I bought it and read it because the exercises in there, I think if you slow down, are very, very, they're very powerful. They work. So first, tell us a little bit what you're up to these days. What's going on?
Well, lots of great stuff going on. One big thing that's happening is that this month is my wife and I are having our 37th wedding anniversary. And so she's off today in Santa Cruz teaching a seminar for the next few days. But we've been having different celebrations throughout the month. And I always say I've had 37 years of straight good luck ever since I persuaded her to marry me. And so just wanted to celebrate that up front, because that's kind of big in my heart today.
That's so great. I literally have chills all over. My heart feels all that love. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And yes, the new book, The Joy of Genius, is just out, and I'm kind of having an author's dream and nightmare, in the sense that the paperbacks have been selling so well that they don't have any, and 10,000 more are being shipped to the distributor and everything. So right now they're a little hard to get, but you seem to have gotten yours okay, so that makes me happy.
Amazing. No, it's that right there is so happy to hear in the 21st century that people really want to tap in to their creativity. And that's what this is about. You know, I started this writing series years ago. I did Write Because It Matters. I did Write Your True Story. And then I realized I was not following my writer's heart. I was doing what I should do, as opposed to what I really want to do. And I'm going to jump right in. Early in your book, you say, ordinary creativity is when you use your creative gifts to serve others, but not yourself. And I lost the other part. True creativity is when you do both. You serve others and yourself. Can you tell us more about that and why that's important?
Well, a good writer friend of mine who's passed away now several years ago, Elmore Leonard, he's a famous mystery novelist. Well, he used to write advertising copy for an advertising agency, and he was well paid for it, but down inside it was eating away at him, because he really wanted to write novels and stories and that kind of thing. So he started writing stories part-time, and I think he told me that the first one he sold, he got paid 2 cents a word for. and it was like a 4 or 5 page story. So let's say it was 1,250 words. So he got paid something like $25 for it. But to him, it was like,
Yeah.
the best thing in the world. And it got him started. And then he ultimately became one of the great mystery novelists of our time. And many of his movies have been made into movies like Get Shorty and Out of Sight with George Clooney and that kind of thing. So um, that's just one example. But I've worked with, let's see, upwards of 20,000 people now over the past 35 or 40 years. And one of the things I've discovered universally is that so many of us are, like you just said, you are kind of operating in your excellence, but not in your genius.
Yes.
And so in the joy of genius, I have a new thing I call the genius spiral, that when you're living in your genius spiral, you might start with focusing on your genius for 10 minutes a day, but pretty soon you're going to spiral into 20 and then 30, and then pretty soon you're going to spiral on up. When I first started 35 or 40 years ago, when I first started thinking about what's in the big leap and in the joy of genius, I was only spending about 10% of my time doing things that were in my genius area, that 90% of the time I was doing stuff I was excellent at or good at, or sometimes not very good at. But what I wasn't doing was making a heartfelt commitment to inviting forth my genius.
Yes.
And true creativity is when you bring forth your own creativity and you let it be okay for you to be rewarded for that rather than other people being rewarded for that. And so, just like Elmore Leonard slaving away in the basement of the advertising agency, cranking out advertising slogans, well, once he opened up to his true genius, he came up and began to live in the genius spiral, and life worked great after that. So I'm all about people accessing their own unique abilities and bringing them forth. And one thing I stress in the new book, The Joy of Genius, is that it takes commitment,
Mm.
and you need to start your journey to genius with a heartfelt commitment.
Mhm.
And here's a simple one. I give some specifics in the book, but here's one, um, would be to say, I commit to spending at least 10 minutes a day focusing exclusively on my genius,
Mhm.
or I commit to spending an hour a day focusing on my genius.
Mhm.
So, whatever you commit to, around here, when we do seminars and people come to work with us here, we start with 10 minutes because
Yeah.
we found that no matter how busy you are, you can always find 10 minutes in your calendar to spend a little time on the genius spiral. And in the big leap, I talk about how to access your genius,
Mhm.
like by finding out what you most love to do and
Mhm.
overcoming the fears that are underneath that, so that you can really spend your time doing what you most love to do. In the joy of genius, in the new book, what I say is genius is contagious, that once you start opening up to it, you get supported by currents and forces that you didn't even know were there.
Yes.
Um, my wife and I, the day we got married 37 years ago, we had a private wedding for ourselves up on a mountaintop. We also had two public weddings, one for our California friends and one for our Colorado friends. But up on a mountaintop, it was just the two of us. And as we were doing our vows to each other, Katie said, "Oh, look." And we looked up, and there were these two beautiful hawks spiraling above us in the sky. It's almost like they'd come to be with us while we were doing our wedding vows. And it was like having a big wink from the universe of saying,
Totally.
"Hey, we're on your side here." But that put me in mind of this idea of a spiral, because I noticed that these hawks were not efforting to go higher and higher. They were just learning to ride the wind currents. They weren't wildly flapping their wings. They were just kind of surfing on the wind
Wow.
currents as they were going higher and higher. And that's what the genius spiral is all about. Once you get on it, you tap into hidden forces that want to support you. Then
Yes.
your job is to simply learn how to kind of be on the edge of that all the time.
Yes. This is amazing. I love this. So, what I love is that you talked about what was your friend's name? The detective novelist? I forgot his name again.
Elmore Leonard.
Elmore Leonard. What I love about what he should be writing versus when he tapped in, and here's where I think everyone, people I speak to is they say, well, how do I know? Or why is it important? And I get this a lot with poetry, right? Because people are dying to write poetry. I realize they don't feel that it's, well, what is it going to do? What am I going to do with it? That kind of attitude some people have. And when people tap into whatever it is, detective novels, poetry, um, writing about, food or whatever it is that they actually think about and enlivens them, when they tap in, I think you get a visceral at least I do, a visceral feeling where I'm energized. It actually gives me energy. Do you feel that when you tap into the genius and the creativity, that one of the ways you know that you're tapping in is that you actually feel better?
Absolutely. You feel better on a moment to moment basis. In fact, that's one of the things I talk about in The Joy of Genius is that kind of genius feeling when you're using yourself fully. One of the quotations I used in the new book, The Joy of Genius, I is from the Gospel of Thomas. And it says, basically, if you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you don't bring forth what is within you will destroy you. And I was so struck by a moment ago when you said that people are dying to write poetry, because in a way, I mean, haven't we all met people that were dying inside because they weren't expressing their true creativity?
Totally. Wow.
Yeah. Maybe that's the name of your new book, Dying to Write Poetry.
Dying to write poetry. That's amazing. That's really true. We did. I remember when I won a big national poetry contest for Wordstock, and I literally felt like I had taken some drug. I really did feel that I did it for me, and I felt like, wow, it didn't matter that I wasn't paid. It was just amazing to feel that someone recognized me and that I was able to do it for me. You know. But there's something that you say in the book too. You say that fear-based negative thinking is what blocks the genius. Tell us. I feel like fear-based negative thinking is really an epidemic right now. You
Yeah.
know, and you're sort of saving the world. I mean, you are. To be quite honest, I really believe this is making and will continue to make such an impact that it's truly a part of the saving of the world that we need.
Mm.
But how maybe would you guide someone out of fear-based negative thinking? And I know you write about it in the book, but I thought we would talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it just takes little moments of awareness. Like I try to write The Joy of Genius like the person was sitting right across from me in my office. So it would be like just having the same kind of experience. So what we do here is we invite people to tune in to their fear and their negative thinking in little kind of homeopathic drops. We'll say, okay, what are you experiencing in the fear zone right now? The fear zone of the body is down in the solar plexus in the belly area. Or what are you feeling in the sadness zone of the body around your heart?
Yes.
Or what are you feeling in the anger zone of your body, up the back of your neck or in your shoulder blades area? These are all places that light up in our body when we're feeling different emotions.
Mm.
Or where are you feeling joy or happiness right now? So if you begin to learn to tune into that in your body, you begin to diffuse the fear, because fear is there to bring us a message. I mean, it's evolved over millions of years. It's there to bring us a message to say, for some reason, I feel under threat right now.
Mm.
Maybe it's my negative thinking that's threatening me, or maybe it's something out here in the world that's threatening me. But just know that when you're scared, you're feeling some kind of threat, and your mind is trying to come up with a solution for how to deal with that threat. And so don't be afraid of your fear. Welcome your fear. As a matter of fact, in The Joy of Genius, I actually invite people, instead of shrinking away from their problems, to actually welcome their problems, because they're a key to opening up to your genius.
Mm.
Whenever you come across something that you can't shake, or you can't figure out how to get through, or you can't figure out how to solve a particular problem, that's a doorway to your genius. Because if you can just let go of focusing on all of the things that you don't have any control over, suddenly this big space opens up in your mind.
Yeah.
And, I was just thinking back when you mentioned poetry. The first three things I ever got published in my writing career were poems.
I knew that actually.
Yeah. And then I got three poems about counseling published in a counseling journal. And that led to my whole career as a writer, because I learned a secret in writing those poems, which was that it's all about coming from inside.
Mm.
It's finding out what wants to be expressed down here.
Mm.
And So I think that so many of us get caught up in our fear-based negative thinking. So we're thinking, oh, people won't like what I write, or what do I have? What right do I have to even think I'm a genius, or those
Mhm.
kind of negative thoughts. But every single one of them is rooted in something down here that you're actually afraid of. And so what we need to make, I always say the longest journey a human being ever makes is this 12-inch journey from the head to the heart, to get down into there and find out what it is that really troubles you and what is it that really excites you so that
Mhm.
you can bring forth what you really need to bring forth.
Yes. Oh, that's so inspiring. I actually, while you were speaking it and doing the motions, I felt the opening. I mean, I
Mm.
actually felt space being cleared out. So that's very powerful, powerful stuff you got there.
Well, it's very powerful. It's the creativity wonder drug, and it doesn't cost you a nickel.
I love this. You tapped on something here. So you said something about, let's see, uh, there is an unmeasurable distance between being on the bench and being on the field. Can you tell us more about creativity being on the bench versus the field?
Yeah, the story I tell in there, I wasn't a very good athlete, but I was big, and so I ended up on the football team. But I mostly spent my time on the bench. But I remember there was this one moment when the coach looked over at me and said, "Hendricks, you're in." And I remember actually being surprised, like, "Oh my gosh!" And but there was this moment of getting up off the bench, and the moment I ran onto the field, everything disappeared because I was now in the game.
Yeah.
Everything was no longer theoretical. It was now based on what I put into it. And so that's why I think that, gosh, I've worked with so many people that complain about not having enough time to do their creativity.
Mhm.
But if they just took the time that they spend complaining about it, uh, anyway, I think the important thing is the moment you get off the bench and get yourself into action, because you sit down, and even if you didn't do anything for 10 minutes but simply wrote, what is my genius, or what do I really want to write about? If you just kind of seeded it with wonder questions like that. Here we call them wonder questions because a wonder question is when you invoke genuine
Yes.
wonder to figure out something you really want to know.
Yes. I love you have that in your book too.
Hmm.
One of the things I love too is the joy. I love that you call it the joy because there's so much joy in the book, the way you write it. And I mean, I found myself giggling and going, "Oh yeah," like it's like there's an aha moment on every page. By the way, audience out there, there's literally an aha moment on every page, and it's simple, but it's not. It's you're saying, well, here, this will help, but actually doing it is that little bit of push, or just to sit down and do it is what it takes.
Yeah. Well, that's why we like to say just start. If you only have 10 minutes, write it in your calendar,
Yeah, yeah.
and that way you'll honor it. But it takes a little bit of living commitment. In the book, I say also that your creativity needs to be wooed.
Yes.
A lot of people chase their creativity like they're chasing a pigeon around the park, and of course, it's never going to. You got to feed a pigeon in the park. You just got to sit there with some popcorn in your hand and let the pigeon come to you. You need to woo it. And same thing if you're wooing a beloved, you need to make a place inside yourself as well as a place outside. Maybe you're going to set a fancy table and feed your beloved dinner, but first you have to feed yourself by
Yeah.
honoring your own creativity and letting yourself know that there's a place for your genius in the world. I've
Ah,
been around the world now 30 some times, and there's genius everywhere. We've got enough genius to change every single problem we've got on planet Earth when we can get that creativity mobilized.
one thing you mentioned here that I do want to express is tell us about how every single person is unique. Like some people think that why should I do something creative, but there's only one expression of you, right?
Exactly. And you've got a unique, just like your thumbprint or your fingerprint, or the any other signature about yourself, that there's just one you. And the big question that I like people to ask are, what are my unique
Mm.
abilities?
Yes.
What is it that when I do it, it fills me with joy and it also could inspire joy in other people?
Yes, yes. You also talk a little bit about, oh, you actually have a chapter about surrounding yourself with the right people. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, if you look around yourself in your life, there are either creativity facilitators
Mhm.
or creativity sappers,
Mm,
people that you're around and you become less creative.
mhm.
And so, what you want to do is what I call ripping your Rolodex. Go through your contacts and ask yourself, which of these people are really committed to their own creativity
Mm.
as well as committed to mine? But
Yes.
first, like I say, you got to start down inside because if you're not fully committed to your creativity, you'll surround yourself with people that help you justify that.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have time to do your creativity, you'll probably have two or three friends that don't have time to do theirs either. But the moment you break through, you change the vibrational nature of yourself so that you start attracting a higher quality person. Ideally, the way I put it around here, 3 to 5 people, get 3 to 5 people whose faces light up when you walk in the room and who make your face light up when you walk in the room, who inspire you to be more creative.
That's a great exercise. I'm going to do that actually. That sounds like so much fun. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about you in the sense that how did you know you wanted to write detective novels? That's so cool.
Well, I didn't really start writing them until 8 years ago. Well, I fell in love with Sherlock Holmes when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I used to read so many Sherlock Holmes books that my English teacher started calling me Sherlock because I kept giving book reports every Friday on the new Sherlock Holmes I'd read. And I became known as Sherlock. And it always in the back of my mind, I'm such a good customer for mysteries. I probably read one a week
Oh, wow.
my whole life. And so I've read hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of them by now. And I always love the way they're put together and the plot twists and everything. And one night, 8 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was reading a mystery before I went to sleep. And I thought, well, I could read my mystery, but my eyes are kind of tired and I don't want to turn on the light. And my wife is sleeping here. And so I closed my eyes and I said, okay, I'm going to write a mystery novel in my mind that I would like to read. And so that little thought, I started doing it in my mind that night. I thought, who is this mystery about? And I got an image just came of this guy who was half Asian, half American, who was standing on the bluffs in Pacific Palisades, looking out over the Pacific Ocean back toward the east.
Mm.
And then I said to him, "Oh, okay, what's your name?" And he said, "Tenzing Norbu." And I said, "Well, how did you get here?" And he said, "Well, I was born in a monastery in India, but then I moved to Los Angeles when I was 16 to be part of a cultural exchange program and ended up working as a summer intern for the police department. And that got me interested in." He said, "I used to be a monk, now I'm a detective." And so, but being a detective is partly about being a monk too. And so this guy's so fascinating to me. So the next night, I woke up again, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I carry on my dialogue. Well, what are you doing? And he said, "Well, I'm working on a case. I'm trying to figure out the identity of this missing person that I'm looking for." And so he basically began to tell me the story, and I just wrote it down. And so now I've written 6 that have been published, and I have 2 still in the can that I haven't published yet of Tenzing Norbu stories.
Oh,
And
that's awesome. I'm going to read one. I love detective. So here's the thing. I love detective stories back in way long time ago, back in NYU days. I actually took a class on it, on the differences in like culture. I think there's a difference between American detective and English detective. I'm not 100% sure, but it wasn't my thing to write. But man, oh man, are they fun to read. So yeah, I'm on
well,
it.
they're even more fun to write, I can tell you. Uh, and after I finished with my Tenzing books, then I launched a new one with Sir Errol Hyde, the Victorian era. He's kind of a dandy aristocrat, but very randy too, and has a body sense of humor. And uh, I just love him. And I've written 2 of those that have been published, and I have one more in the can.
Oh, fun. Now, do you think that it was as you were writing the other books and tapping more and more into your genius that you gave space for this to come in, right? Like tell us a little bit about the fact that now you're in another level of writing, or do they all just kind of is writing the genius? Obviously, it's one of your geniuses. And then if you make space for it, characters can show up. Things can show up that unexpectedly really tap into more genius.
Yes, well, I think for me, writing is a path of enlightenment. It's a path of meditation. I also meditate every day for about half an hour to 40 minutes and have for many years. And that's an important thing to just sit and be and meditate. But also the expression of creativity is a powerful meditation too. And so to me, writing is in a way an ultimate form of both creative expression and spiritual and psychological growth, because to get to the good stuff you have to go deep enough inside and understand yourself enough that you can then write about that and write about how you understand a character and that kind of thing. So um, I think that for me, the act of writing is an experience of joy.
Mm,
It's an experience of directly communicating with myself. And when writing is going well, I always say it's as good as sex or meditation or any of the other things that enliven human beings.
agreed, agreed. This has been a joy. I think this is like one of my very favorite interviews ever. You are amazing, and I feel so alive. So thank you. And you look like you're 10 years younger again. Like you're like aging backwards, which is
Well, thank you. I feel like that. I wore my Mr. Rogers sweater today. So,
is there any one last bit of inspiration that maybe you want to leave the audience?
yes, remember this moment when I talked about heartfelt commitment. If
Mm,
you will make a heartfelt commitment to your creativity and give it evidence that you have made that by spending 10 minutes a day in the beginning, focusing on your creativity, it's contagious and it's addictive. You'll want 20 minutes next week, you'll want 40 minutes next month, and pretty soon you'll be living a life where you're expressing and living on the genius spiral all day long.
ah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everybody, go get it. Even order it now. It'll come. He's making sure gets there. The Joy of Genius, Gay Hendricks. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful anniversary
Thank,
celebration.
thank you so much. We're enjoying it very much.
Excellent. Bye.
Bye.